my name is Christy Everhart. I am a resource English language arts teacher at Lockhart, Texas. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade special ed students. I absolutely love what I do. I'm also a 12-year teacher, and I'm the first to admit that I did not have everything figured out. I have never done the same thing twice in a year in my teaching career. And also, up to this point, I've kind of switched my position about every 3 years. This year, I went and told my principal, I was like, don't you dare change me. Like, I actually really love what I'm doing, and I want to become an expert teacher. So that's a little bit about my background. But anyway, the point of why I'm here is I am pushing myself as a teacher because I want to be able to help other educators become the best versions of themselves as they can be. And one way that I know that I can do that is by writing a blog or trying this video blog. And so, again, just putting myself out there because that's at the point where I'm ready to start taking these challenges myself. I want to give a huge shout out to two of the people who are really the reason that I'm even putting myself out here as a teacher. And that goes to Todd Nesloney, who is the author of Kids Deserve It and Stories from Web. He recently held an event called Celebrate Your Story, and my teacher world was rocked. Like, I will never, ever be the same teacher again. That event was totally amazing. And if you ever have an opportunity to connect with Todd or read his book, I absolutely encourage you to do so because I've literally seen no negative feedback from him or people who have talked with him. Like, just an amazing, amazing leader, an amazing educator. And again, like, I would not be doing this had I not met Todd Nesloney. The other shout out that I want to give is to Hal Bowman. Hal Bowman is the Teach Like a Rockstar author. He also has the Teach Like a Rockstar podcast, and he was a part of Todd Nesloney's event. And one of the stories that he told is actually had me reflect on my own experience, my own story about why I'm here. And I want to give huge credit to that because my first, whatever you call this, my first little episode is partly due to reflecting on a story that Hal Bowman shared. And again, if you have a chance to connect with him, amazing, amazing guy. Very, very engaging. I am not a PD kind of girl. I get bored very easily. And seriously, this whole conference and listening to these teacher stories, I was engaged the whole time. And like, I was never bored, which is huge for me because I lose my attention span in like 5 minutes. So anyway, what I want to talk today about is one of the things in the first chapter of Stories from Web, which is Todd Nesloney's book. He challenges you to think about, what is your teacher why? Why do you do this job? Why do you come back with very little pay to work with these kids who may or may not want to be there, who may or may not like you, with all the parent challenges and all the testing and every single issue that you hear about education all the time? What is your why? And I started thinking about that. My kids, my students ask me all the time, hey, why are you a teacher? Like, they're middle school kids. They know the deal. They're like, we're not exactly nice to you. Why are you like here? Why are you a teacher? I wouldn't want to do this job. And I've always struggled with giving them that answer because to me, I have been a teacher since I was a little baby. I have always wanted to teach. I taught my stuffed animals. I taught my Barbie dolls. I was the kid who went to her teachers at the end of the school year and asked for extra workbooks, like standardized testing. I loved that stuff. Like, I ate it up. I spent my summers doing workbooks. I was a weird child, but I just had the teacher in me. And a lot of people are like, well, are your parents teachers? And I'm like, no. In fact, my mother didn't become a teacher until like years after I started teaching. So it's just me. Like, that's who I've always been, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But I wasn't happy with this answer, even though I know at the core of me, I'm a teacher. That's just who I am. I couldn't be anything else if I tried. I want a way to explain that. Like, how do you explain that's just who I am? And so I started really thinking about that question, and I did come up with two real answers. I thought about my former teachers and my education life, which, by the way, thankfully, I had it in me that I wanted to be a teacher because my teachers suck. Like, no offense to them, but I can count on my hand the number of teachers that actually gave me a really good experience. And I tell all the educators I work with now, it's like, dude, I'm self-taught. I learned what I learned because I took the time to learn it myself. It wasn't because I was this expert student and whatever. Yeah, I made good grades, but I am a horrible student. Okay. Short attention span, don't want to listen to you, and you lose me quickly. So it wasn't because of them. And in fact, one of my stories that has made me so passionate as an educator is I actually had teachers who told me that I'd never be able to reach my goal. One of my biggest goals was being able to go to Carnegie Hall. And I love music. And I thought, man, what could I do? If I could do anything before I die, what would I do? And I wanted to play at Carnegie Hall, which I thought was the like, all right, this is going to take you forever to get there kind of thing. It happened when I was 19. But before I got to Carnegie Hall, my band director flat out stood in front of me and said, Christy, give up because you're never going to get there. And I say now, thank God I had that personality that's like, oh, really? Watch me. Um, because I don't like when people tell me I can't do something. I think that's a bunch of bull. And I find a way to be able to do it within reason and, you know. So thankfully I did that. And I had people elsewhere along the way, again, good friends and things who did get me to that goal. My first year of college, my friend encouraged me to audition for the band. And my second year, I did get into the National Wind Ensemble and we performed at Carnegie Hall. And so it's a pet peeve of mine when teachers tell kids, you can't do that. Think of something else. Sorry, but if you're passionate about something, you need to be pursuing everything that you can to get to that goal. And my things. That's one of my reasons. Like I tell my kids all the time, dream big. What do you want to do? Let's go for it. How can I help you get there? And again, that's kind of my experience with my teachers just not believing in me and not thinking I was worth anything. Um, my other reason that I really want to share, and this one is attributed to Hal Bowman, who shared his story at Todd Neslony's PD Celebrate Your Story. But Hal Bowman shared his story about this teacher who wasn't even a teacher. He had a mentor. It was a senior in high school, and while he was a second grader, and he told this story about being mentored by this senior and how much of an impact that senior made just by investing into his life, just by caring about him, just by not giving up on him. And I thought back again to my own education because that really made a difference. And I thought back to my story as a student. And again, I told you I'm a horrible student. Math was an area that just never clicked for me. I remember in pre-algebra, I made a D, and then I somehow managed to scrape by with a C because I had this thing about I wanted to pass. So I did make a C in Algebra 1, but this was this really tough spiraled curriculum, and math was not clicking, especially when it got to word problems. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But my sophomore year in Algebra 2, I had a really good friend of mine, and this really good friend of mine would coach me. And I say coach me because I watch a lot of my students like, here, copy this. But my friend took the time to coach me. We would be on the phone for 2 hours at night, and he would talk me through how to work these problems. And here's the cool thing I think really weird. Okay. The way my brain understands math is not the way that they teach me. I don't get that. And he listened to how I thought, and he would ask me questions that would help guide me to the correct way of thinking that would get me to the correct answer. And let me tell you guys, that sophomore year in Algebra 2, I was one of 3 students who made an A in that class. And it was the first time I'd ever seen an A attached to my name in a math class. That person, his name was Chris, he was a teacher. And I think about that now because a lot of times we make excuses, but a teacher is somebody who never gives up on you, who's not going to just feed you the answers. It's going to coach you and help get you there. Anyway, so that's kind of my why. That's who I want to be. And I do that for my students day in and day out because that's what teaching is. So I'm interested to hear more about your why, but that's a little bit about my story. And maybe I'll tell more about that later on in other videos. But for right now, this is Christy Everhart, and I look forward to hearing from you about your why.